4 days before Dolly Parton died, she gave one last interview. No stage, no rhinestones, no wig perfectly placed. Just Dolly, tired in a way the world had never been allowed to see, telling People magazine something that should have stopped everyone cold. "I am dealing with some health issues that I just didn't pay attention to when I was watching over Carl." Cancer was already inside her body. Her immune system was failing. Her kidneys were in crisis. And her entire explanation, for all of it, was that she had been too busy caring for her husband to care for herself. She didn't say it like a confession. She said it like a fact. Like the answer was obvious. Like every woman listening already knew exactly what she meant. They did. Dolly Parton's secret health battle wasn't just worse than anyone knew. It was hidden by a rule she had followed her entire life. A rule no one ever had to write down, because women absorb it so early they mistake it for instinct. Your body is the last thing on the list. She was 80 years old. She died on August 25, 2026. The rule held to the end. And this is the story of how, what she had to be to get in, and what the performance eventually cost. Dolly Rebecca Parton arrived in Nashville the day after she graduated high school in 1964. She was 18. She had $67. She had been performing since she was 10, had signed her first recording contract at 13, and had already mapped, with remarkable clarity, exactly what the industry would require of her. Nashville in 1964 required that a woman be non-threatening, palatable, Southern enough to be authentic, feminine enough to be decorative, and sufficiently compliant that the men running the machinery could believe they had discovered her, rather than that she had arrived already knowing exactly what she was doing. So she built an image engineered to satisfy that requirement completely. The towering blonde wig, the rhinestone costumes, the figure she turned into a joke before anyone else could, the laugh that was always warm, always ready, never sharp enough to make anyone defensive. She walked into every room looking like the punchline. She proceeded to be the smartest person in it. The image was a strategy. Strategies have maintenance costs. For 60 years she carried it. Every performance demanded it. Every public moment, sick ones, grief-soaked ones, the ones in the final year of her life when her body was quietly coming apart, required that she show up as Dolly. Not as Dolly Rebecca Parton, the woman, as the construction, the brand, the rhinestone reality the public had paid for. The rule of entry said, give them the performance they expect. What it never said, what no one told her, was what happens to a body that performs through everything. Through hemorrhaging, through suicidal depression, through immune collapse, through cancer. A body that is never allowed to stop doesn't always get to choose when it does. What the medical establishment didn't say, and what silence eventually made possible. In 1982, Dolly Parton cancelled her tour. She had just appeared in 2 major Hollywood films. She was one of the most recognized women in American entertainment. And she disappeared, hospitalized, in pain, gone from the stage she had occupied without interruption since childhood. What was happening? Her body had been sending signals for years. Severe abdominal pain, hemorrhaging, an exhaustion that went beyond anything her schedule explained. She called them female issues, because that was the phrase available to her, and because it was the phrase that made doctors stop asking follow-up questions. She was eventually diagnosed with endometriosis. In 1982, the medical establishment did not treat endometriosis as a serious condition. Women who reported its symptoms were told their pain was exaggerated. That discomfort was simply the cost of being female. The condition existed. The diagnosis was routinely withheld. She spent months in and out of hospital. Medications that were supposed to help didn't. She described going to the very bottom of both her physical and emotional life simultaneously. At the lowest point, she said later, she had argued with God about whether suicide was a sin that could be forgiven. She was that far down. What pulled her back was her dog, jumping into her lap at the exact moment she needed something to anchor her. She described it as a sign. She chose to stay. "I'm grateful it happened when I was still young enough to bounce back," she said later. That phrase carries everything the rule of silence produces. The body has credit. You can draw on it heavily, if you recover fast enough. Resilience is the acceptable face of suffering. Suffering itself is only permitted if you survive it. She survived. She treated survival as permission to keep going. In 1985, at 36, she underwent a partial hysterectomy, the surgical resolution of years of endometriosis that medication had failed to control. It ended any possibility of biological children. She had wanted them. She said so, over the following decades, with the directness that was always her most distinctive quality. And at the other end of her life, the rule of silence operated in its final and most consequential form. When she was hospitalized in August 2026 and the cancer was confirmed, her team released nothing publicly until she was gone. She had given an interview 4 days earlier. She described kidney problems, immune problems, doctors working hard. She did not say cancer. Whether that was her instruction or her team's, the effect was the same. The real diagnosis stayed private until there was nothing left to protect. What the marriage contract actually asked of her body, and what the contract never said out loud. Carl Thomas Dean and Dolly Parton married on May 30th, 1966. The arrangement they built together was, on the surface, a study in complementary extremes. She traveled the world. He stayed home. She performed for millions. He gave almost no interviews in nearly 60 years. She was Dolly. He was, as she put it, the only person who still called her by her real name without it feeling like theatre. She protected that arrangement ferociously, and the protection was its own form of labor. There is a specific clause in the unwritten contract of a long marriage, particularly one where a woman's career runs at this scale, that the legal version never captures. It says, "The marriage absorbs what the law ignores." Consider what the legal contract of their marriage actually did and did not say. Tennessee in 1966. A woman's legal identity upon marriage was still substantially subsumed by her husband's. The law had improved by the mid-60s, but the cultural architecture had not kept pace. A wife's labor, domestic, emotional, caregiving, was presumed, unpaid, and legally invisible. It did not appear in any contract. It was not negotiated. It was the water the marriage swam in, so constant and so assumed that naming it felt eccentric, even rude. Dolly Parton negotiated her publishing rights with extraordinary precision. She negotiated her recording contracts. She built one of the most sophisticated artist-owned business structures in the history of country music. None of that negotiating power extended to the unwritten terms of the marriage, the terms that said when her husband's body needed attending to, that was her responsibility, and the terms that said her body, by implication, was hers to manage in whatever time remained. When Carl Dean's health began to decline in his final years, there was no institution, no policy, no formal mechanism that assigned Dolly Parton the role of primary caregiver. No contract stipulated it. It happened because that is what wives do, what women do, what the machinery of marriage has always assumed, without writing it down, because writing it down would require acknowledging that it is being asked. She watched over him. She sat with him through his long decline, and in doing so, fully, devotedly, the way the rule required, she made a series of small decisions that compounded into one catastrophic one. Her own symptoms went unmonitored. Her own appointments were deferred. The person in front of her needed attention now. Her body could wait. Carl Dean died on March 3rd, 2025. Within days, she released a song. If You Hadn't Been There. She wrote it herself. She processed grief the only way she knew, publicly, through work, with the warmth that the audience had always depended on. The machinery of her career provided structure. She used it. She kept going. What she did not do, in the immediate aftermath of 60 years of marriage ending, was turn full attention to her own body. The marriage contract does not expire at death. It leaves behind the habits of a lifetime, the practiced self-erasure, the instinct to attend to others first, the deep unfamiliarity with placing your own needs at the top of a list. Dolly Parton had followed that contract for 6 decades. The contract ending did not automatically undo what it had trained her to do. By August 2026, she was describing health issues she had neglected while watching over Carl. She was hospitalized the same day she said it, what the performance concealed, and what it cost to maintain it while dying. In October 2025, 1 month after she had cancelled her Las Vegas residency due to health concerns, 1 month after reports surfaced that her inner circle feared her condition was far more serious than kidney stones, Dolly Parton posted a video. Hair done, makeup on, smile immediate and practiced and wide. She looked directly into the camera. I know lately, everybody thinks I'm sicker than I am. Do I look sick to you? This is the rule of appearance operating at full sophistication. Not denial, something more precise. A performance of wellness, so technically accomplished that the question itself becomes the argument. Look at me. I look fine. Therefore I am fine. She had been doing this for 60 years. The image she had constructed at 18, the wig, the nails, the rhinestones, the warmth, was, among other things, an armor. It controlled what people saw before she spoke. And in the final year of her life, it continued, doing what it had always done, managing the audience's perception of a woman whose body was in serious decline. In March 2026, she appeared at Dollywood. She said she had a few little health issues and that they were being taken care of. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. What the crowd did not see: immune system dysfunction, disordered kidneys, a digestive system she described as all out of whack over the past couple of 3 years, and a cancer diagnosis the public would not learn about until she was dead. She kept showing up. Virtual appearances, social media updates, award acceptances from what was, in effect, a cancer ward. She was developing a digital avatar, a virtual version of herself that could attend events her body could no longer manage. Even at the end, her instinct was to solve the problem of absence rather than permit it. I need to stop here for a moment. Dolly Parton died 2 days ago, and what I keep coming back to, what I cannot let pass without naming, is how many women watching this right now have followed some version of this exact script. Not the rhinestones. The other part. The part where you are sick, and you know you're sick, and you keep showing up because stopping feels like failing, because the people around you are depending on you, and your body's distress signals feel like an inconvenience to everyone, including yourself. She smiled through kidney infections and immune collapse and grief and a cancer no one was allowed to know about. The world called it strength. It was strength. It was also the thing that killed her. These stories deserve to be told. Subscribe so we can keep telling them. What she owned, what the industry tried to take, and what financial power still couldn't protect. In 1974, Elvis Presley wanted to record I Will Always Love You. Dolly Parton had written it the year before, as a farewell to Porter Wagoner, the established country star she was leaving in order to build her own career. When Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, informed her that any cover recording required surrendering half the publishing rights, she said no. She said no to Elvis Presley. The publishing rights to a song are its long-term financial life. To hand over half was not a partnership. It was a transfer of ownership disguised as standard terms. She understood precisely what was being asked and declined. In 1992, Whitney Houston recorded the song for The Bodyguard. The royalties that came to Dolly Parton were, by her own account, enough to buy Graceland. She had earned the right to tell that story with satisfaction. This is the rule of money, inverted. She knew what she owned. She fought for it. She won. But financial independence is not the same as freedom from the machinery that financial success creates. Her Las Vegas residency, originally scheduled for December 2025, postponed due to health, rescheduled for September 2026, represented major contractual commitments, venues, teams, ticket buyers. The economic momentum of a performing career does not pause for illness. It generates obligations, and obligations generate pressure, and pressure on a sick body produces consequences that no royalty check can reverse. She was still working toward that September 2026 deadline when she was admitted to the cancer center in August. She never made it. What was taken from her? What she built instead? And the specific cost of building it alone. In 1985, Dolly Parton underwent a partial hysterectomy. She was 36. The surgery was the medical resolution of years of endometriosis. It ended the physical crisis and ended any possibility of biological children simultaneously. She had wanted children. She said so over the following decades, without apology or deflection. She described the grief. She described the adjustment. And then she did something that the rule of motherhood, the rule that says a woman without children has left something unfinished, did not fully contain. She outscaled it. The Imagination Library, which she founded in 1995, had donated more than 300 million books to children by the time of her death, delivered monthly, from birth to school age, regardless of family income, across 5 countries. She funded it substantially from her own resources. She built it to outlast her. It will. She became a mother to millions of children she would never meet, and she built the institution that will continue caring for them long after she is gone. But there is a cost specific to this form of motherhood that no one discusses directly. When Carl was dying, when grief arrived and her own symptoms were intensifying, there were no adult children to notice. No one to push back when she said everything was fine. No one to sit in the doctor's office and ask the question she might not have asked herself. No one living nearby whose love was calibrated specifically to the face she had been making since childhood, the face that is different when something is wrong. She was watched over by professionals, by fans at a distance, by a team. She was not watched over in the way that is only possible when someone has known you their whole life and can see the difference between fine and not fine in the way you hold your shoulders. The children she never had could not watch over her. And the rule of motherhood, the rule that had organized her body around others for 4 decades, could not protect her when she most needed someone to do the same. What the machinery required, even from a dying woman. On September 28, 2025, Dolly Parton postponed her Las Vegas residency. She framed it with her signature precision: health issues, procedures needed, time for her 100,000-mile checkup. She made it sound manageable. She made it sound temporary. She did what the rule of exit requires. She stepped back, while continuing to manage the anxiety of the people she was stepping back from. The speculation machine activated immediately. Reports surfaced that her condition was far more serious than kidney stones. Social media amplified every absence. Every missed appearance was analyzed. The machinery of public concern, which is also, always, a form of pressure, began to operate. So she kept showing up. October 2025, the reassurance video. March 2026, Dollywood, in person, wig and smile intact. May 2026, another update. June 2026, a surprise appearance at a Tennessee travel stop. August 19, 2026, a virtual acceptance of the Academy of Country Music Poets Award. 6 days later, she was dead. Every one of those appearances, in person or virtual, was an act of reassurance directed outward. Every one required her to confirm she was still Dolly, still present, still the person they had followed for 6 decades. The rule of exit does not say, when you are sick enough, you may stop. It says, when you are gone, we will let you stop. The machinery of public life waited for her death. It did not grant her permission to rest before it. The one that made everything else inevitable. The rule has no author. It was not passed by any legislature. It was not written into her recording contracts, or her marriage certificate, or any medical form she ever signed. It was enforced by something older than any of those, the accumulated weight of every signal that tells a woman, from earliest childhood, that her needs are the final consideration, that her symptoms can wait, that good women push through, that asking for help is a burden. Your health is what remains after everyone else has been attended to. Track the sequence without flinching. Carl Dean's health declines. She watches over him fully, without reservation, because the rule of loyalty requires total devotion, and she has never done anything halfway. Her own appointments get deferred, not because she is negligent, not because she doesn't know better, but because the person in front of her needs attention now, and she has been trained to understand that as sufficient reason to wait. Carl dies. March 3rd, 2025. She releases a song within days, processes grief through work, keeps the machinery moving. She does not, in the immediate aftermath of 60 years of marriage ending, redirect full attention to her own body. The habit of self-last is not a decision anymore. It's a reflex. By September 2025, her body stops waiting. A kidney stone infection is severe enough to hospitalize her. The Las Vegas residency is postponed. She begins getting the medical attention that her systems have been asking for while she looked in another direction. But the damage runs deeper than kidney stones. Her immune system is disordered. Her digestive system has been failing for years. And somewhere inside her body, in a place none of the public updates mentioned, cancer has established itself. The type was never released. Her estate confirmed only that she died after a brief battle with cancer. Brief, which means either it was aggressive or it was caught late, or both. The timeline of her diagnosis is not public. What is public is this. 4 days before she died, she told people she had been dealing with health issues she hadn't paid attention to while caring for her husband. She was hospitalized the same day. She died 4 days later. She named the rule herself. She stated it plainly, without accusation, without self-pity, the way you state a fact, so deeply embedded you no longer experience it as a choice. That is what a rule sounds like when it has been followed long enough to become invisible. She turned compliance into artistry. She made 60 years of self-erasure look, from every external angle, like freedom. Underneath it, a woman whose body was sending signals in 1982 that took years to diagnose, who reached the edge of suicide in 1984 while her doctors treated her symptoms one at a time, who spent the last year of her life managing kidney disease, immune collapse, and a private cancer diagnosis, while posting reassurance videos and planning a Las Vegas show she would never perform. The machinery that produced this is not a relic. It is operating right now, in every woman who delays a scan because she's taking care of someone else. In every woman who describes her own pain as probably nothing. In every woman who says, "I'll deal with it later," and means it and believes it and is wrong. Dolly Parton is gone. She spent 80 years building something enormous. A career, an institution, a body of work that will outlast her by generations. She did it on her own terms, more than almost any woman in the history of American entertainment. And at the end, the machinery got her anyway. Not through any single person's cruelty. Not through malice or conspiracy. Through the quiet, relentless operation of rules so old and so embedded that she described their cost the way you describe the weather, matter-of-factly, without surprise, as though everyone already understood. They did. The machine is not. Now you see it.